Well, hello again all my YouTubers, and welcome back to part 3 in the Motocross Fallers series of videos. Now this is another selection of riders falling from their trusty motocross bikes, although of course no serious accidents occurred in these clips and they all walked away unscathed. Okay, let's kick off with a very wet and muddy Scottish twin shock meeting at Glenaukle in Alloa in 2011. This is the modern motocross class. You could just see the riders beginning to struggle with those very deep, muddy, soaking wet motocross racing conditions. Scottish twin shocks again at Drumclog, and that is Gary White being spat off his Yamaha 465 as he takes a bad bounce on the tabletop. Scottish Twin Shock Club again at Pennycook. This is the start of the Monoshock B class, the modern class. As you can see, a couple of riders go down, and about another about another 6 riders are collected in the process. Now, of course, it is a Scottish twin shock meeting, but they do have a class for these modern monoshock bikes, which in fact make up the biggest percentage of the entries for the Scottish Twin Shock Club. Scottish Twin Shocks again at Glenaukle in Alloa, and this is Rick Caldwell trying to get over this absolutely enormous mountain with his XR500 Honda. As you can see, it's a huge hill. He just cannot get over it, but maybe if he gets off the bike, gives it a wee shove, he'll maybe manage it. Come on, Rick, give it a shove. That's the game. Next up, it's Callum Sangster at Gairloch Head with a Scottish Twin Shock event on his on his 1981 250 Maiko. Callum doing very well, but unfortunately gets caught in the ruts and goes down. Now, classic racing at the Nostalgia Scramble again. Now, the rider in front there is Alan Arnott, who got a stonking start from the gate, but unfortunately Alan lost the front wheel of his BSA, and he collected Pete Hollinshead, number 454, in that quite nasty looking crash actually. Now, Pete Hollinshead involved in this event as well at the Nostalgia Scramble a few years earlier. As you can see, the rider goes down just in front of Pete Hollinshead, and Pete lands his SRM BSA on top of the rider, but both riders were completely fine after this little incident. And that big SRM BSA is quite a heavy bike to have lying on top of you. Scottish Classic Racing now at Curtness in Fife. And an unlucky rider just got T-boned as he made the turn. As you can see, he just comes into the turn, and that other rider just comes right across him and T-bones him and knocks him clean off his machine. Scottish Classics again at Finhaven in Forfar, number 113 on the left there. That's Billy Chisholm taking a little tumble on his Husqvarna. As you can see, Billy just comes round the corner and gives it too much of a handful and slides off his machine. The Cumberland Grand National Scramble now at Blencarn in Penrith. As you can see, the rider just comes round and loses that all-important front end again and hits the deck. Scottish Classic Racing again at a very wet Dunoon. It's always wet in Dunoon, and this is Steve Dent, who's going for the early bath. Possibly the only big puddle in the whole of the track, and Steve has to drop his BSA right in it. This particular event was absolutely horrendously wet this weekend, and people were struggling to even put a lap in, let alone get round the track. But as you can see, Steve appears to be enjoying himself. Okay, back to the Nostalgia Scramble once again. A couple of riders having a little come together as they head down the hill. Oh, never looks good when that an old Rickman Matisse lands on top of you, but it looks like they just touched Arams just going into the turn, and that particular rider seemed to come off the worst. Okay, next up it's Craig Stevenson at a Scottish Twin Shock event at Pow Mill in Scotland. And as you can see, Craig took the jump, and to make the turn he just slammed that front brake on and lost the front end. Now, a relatively dry meeting at the famous Dunoon racetrack, and that number 199 there, that's Dennis McElhaney, who has hit the deck. As you can see, Dennis comes down and just once again loses that front end. But at least he was appreciative to the cameraman for capturing his spill. Now, a completely frozen racetrack at a Scottish Twin Shock event at Forfar. Number 411 there, that's Don Fullerton taking a spin on his Yamaha when his tyres couldn't grip the minus 6 degree frozen racetrack. Now, where else could this be but Dunoon in Scotland? Now, this bike was absolutely bogged down, and this bike lay on the track for about an hour before they could try and extricate it from the mud. It was just stuck completely fast, and as you can see, Kevin Rosey and the rest of his mates still trying to dig that KTM out of the Dunoon mud. It did take them some while, but they did manage to lift the bike out the mud before the end of the race event. And that's the famous Morton Hanna putting his back into it and trying to get that KTM out the mud. But the guys did manage to do it eventually, but it just shows you how wet this Dunoon racetrack can get of a day. Now, this is the same event, and that rider on the right going down, that looks like Tom Grant, who is taking a little spill off his Evolution Honda. As you can see, it's nice and wet at Dunoon again. This is the same event, and this is John Fullerton, the son of Don, who we just seen recently, but this is this is John just trying to get through another one of those regular Dunoon little ruts. And as you can see, this bike is in there for the duration. I would just park it up there, John, and just head home. Your day's done. The Dunoon mud has taken your machine, so just park up and get a taxi home. The same Dunoon event once again, and another victim is claimed by the dreaded Dunoon monsoon rains. Now, the same event once again, this is Neil Robinson on his CR250 Honda. As you can see, Neil's got the feet down just for a bit of stabilisation there, but that'll not do you any good in the Dunoon ruts. Now, this was another victim that was claimed. This is Cy Gregg. As you can see, it's becoming an all familiar story with this Dunoon event. Cy's 4-stroke Honda was stuck fast, and some of the other guys here were doing their very best to try and dig the bike out. Si was getting a bit raggy after that encounter. Next up, it's my old mate Sean Docherty. I mean, Sean's a local man to this track, and even Sean was struggling to cope with the conditions. Kevin Rosie trying to lift his bike up here, only to be knocked back down again by one of his teammates. Now this is John Richards' Michael. It was jammed in the Dunoon mud. And as you can see, that little helper, he was well dressed for the occasion with his shorts and his slippers on, but well done to him. Scottish twin shocks again at Stirling, and we're looking at our Evolution rider trying to cross the very wet boggy. He must have thought, if I go as fast as I can, that'll help me get across, but as you can see, he pinned it, but unfortunately couldn't clear that very wet ditch that was causing loads of problems that day. Now we're back to the Vets MXDN at Farley Castle. If you look for the rider in third position here, ooh, a very, very nasty off there. The rider came down the hill and caught his left arm on one of the posts, and it pulled him straight off the bike. Ooh, it was a nasty tumble. But the rider was still okay after this incident. There's the Gary Allen Memorial meeting at Forfar now. Number 4 there on the KTM, that's John Adamson. Oof. As you can see, John got a good start on the KTM there, but as he made the turn, he lost the back wheel, which spun him around, and he went down and collected another rider as he came across. Now this is John Mitchell at a Scottish twin shock event at Kincardine. Now as you can see that John just lost the front wheel, and he wasn't very happy because some of the spectators wouldn't come and give him a hand to lift his bike up. As you can see, he just lost the front end, went down, and he got his leg trapped under the bike, and he was looking for some of the spectators to give him a hand, but they weren't very forthcoming, so he wasn't too happy, our John. The Nostalgia Scramble once again, and the Kawasaki rider, I think that could be Lee Johnston on that Kawasaki. As you see, he just comes round the corner, and I think that other rider just collides with him slightly and spits him off. Now Scottish Classic Racing now, and we are looking at the rider in front here, which is Liston Bell. Now if you watch Liston as he goes up the hill, he misses one post, and wow! He catches his left leg on the second post and pulls him straight off the bike. He misses the first post and bang, pulls him right off his machine. And his brother Lewis there, number 9, got a good view of that event because he was in second position. Scottish Classic Racing again at Forfar, and number 98 going down there is once again our good friend Liston Bell as he slides off his machine. The Melville Winter Motocross Series now at Lockhouse's farm. Number 771 there seemed to think that the track went straight on, but unfortunately it did take a turn to the right. Scottish twin shocks again at Glenfarg near Perth. This of course is one of the monoshock riders who just takes a little off-track excursion on his KX Kawasaki. Scottish twin shock modern class again at Pennycook near Edinburgh, and this rider looked like he got a nasty fall there. Could have hurt his right leg more seriously, but he was fine after this little slide. Scottish twin shocks again at Stirling. Just another normal day as these modern riders trying to make their way up the hill, and he looks like he's doing well. He's doing very well. Is he going to make it? Is he going to make it? Oops. This guy looked like he'd been shot with a gun when he dropped that bike, but he was doing very loose, like he's needing a good back tyre on that bike, but it looks like somebody just shot him and he fell off his machine. The modern class again at Scottish Twin Shocks at Glenfarg near Perth. These couple of monoshock riders got a bit of a tangle going and knocked both of them to the deck. As you can see, came round and one rider got crossed up. Ended up taking both riders onto the Glenfarg stubble. And this is the modern class at Carden Den in Fife. As you can see, the start of this race, everything was going well, but a couple of riders got crossed up and into turn 1 and went down, and collected a few other riders in the process. Now we're on board with Morton Hanna at Farley Castle. As you can see, Morton was doing fine until he had this little incident. Okay, next up we're in Lookers in Fife at a Scottish Twin Shock modern class meeting. And you can see that rider number 27, I think he was just making the turn a bit too slow and just got over the top of the rut and went down. Back to the nostalgia scramble once again. If you look to your right hand side, you'll see that that rider got a little bit crossed up and collected 2 or 3 posts of the track on his way down. But he was still perfectly fine. Now this is Robin McQueen at a Scottish Twin Shock event at Gairloch Head. As you can see, Robin comes into the turn on his Myco and he takes his goggles off, which is something you should never do in a turn, and slams on the back brake and goes down. Now this is Sean Docherty and young lad Martin having a little coming together at an event at Stirling. Sean was minding his own business until young Martin there washed his front wheel away for him. Okay, this is John Souter at Glencoe in Alloa, and as you can see, another perfectly dry day. I know how you feel, John, I know how you feel. But John was a very experienced motocross racer, and the strangest thing is John no longer races motocross bikes. Now I wonder why that is. He probably packed it in after that, after this event. Scottish Classic Racing now at Drumclog, and we're looking at Graham Smith and Steve Moore having a little coming together there. As you can see, both riders just seem to catch handlebars and they both hit the deck. Now our wet theme continues with Scottish Twin Shocks again, the modern class at Stirling once again. This particular event that day claimed quite a few riders, as you can see with this next clip. Just some very good riders that were just really struggling to cope with these terrible conditions at Stirling on the day. And this was another victim that the Stirling track claimed on that very wet and dreich day at Stirling. Now the modern class once again at Scottish Twin Shocks at Kincardine. And as you can see, this modern rider just got crossed up coming across the finish line and just ended up with his head hitting that rope and gave him a nasty knock on the head. Another wet meeting this time at Drumclog. Now that is Stuart White, I think, coming off his Evolution bike unceremoniously, but conditions once again were very wet on the day. Scottish twin shocks again, the modern class. Now this Suzuki rider took a little slide off and was collected by that KTM rider as he came round the corner, and gave him a right nasty bang on the shoulder as he hit the deck. The Cumberland Grand National now, and this Michael rider got spat off his Ford 90, but he was still fine after this little spill. Scottish Classics once again at Drumclog, and the third place rider there going down is Darrell Wiley. And Darrell actually suffered a shoulder injury after this spill, but he's now thankfully fully recovered. Now the start of the pre-1984 class at Forfar. You can see a couple of riders going into the turn and hitting the deck. About 4 riders there. I think Jim Colligan, Andy Malloch were all involved in this little turn 1 spill. But once again, everybody was fine. Scottish Classics once again at Lockerbie. This is the start of one of the pre-1984 class races. About 6 riders were involved in this turn 1 coming together, and Billy Pentland in the front there, number 88, suffered an ankle injury from which he's now fully recovered thankfully, but there's at least 5 riders collected in this start 1 incident. Next up it's Paul Chiappa and Craig Smith again. These two are renowned for bashing into each other in the turns, and as you can see, Craig just comes down the inside of Paul and knocks him clean off his 490 Michael. Next up, this is DJ Bruce, number 227 on his KTM, and DJ was actually leading the championship in this year when he took this little spill, but as you can see, he's perfectly fine, and it was just another one of these front end racing incidents. Next up, it's David Pooler at the Tinto Moto Park. Oof. As you can see, David just got a bit crossed up coming into that little jump, and his Evolution Honda was getting ready to spit him off, and as he takes a tumble, he just misses photographer there, Barry Gordon, who dashes out the way. Next up is Jason Martin at Whitekirk, and Jason this time riding that 490 Michael, but Jason normally rides a modern bike, and as you can see him just looking down on the bike and said, where's the back brake on this thing? Oh, there it is, and just locks it up and goes down. Next up is Morton Hanna once again at a Scottish Twin Shock event at Stirling, and Morton unfortunately gets taken out by his teammate Tom Grant. As you can see, Tom Grant makes the turn tighter and just comes across Morton and washes that front wheel from his Evolution Honda. Now the same event once again, and this is Keith Burse taking a little spill from his Honda, coming through that very wet patch in this Stirling racetrack. Now also coming up, this is Kieran Smart dropping his bike into the turn, and very quick rider Kieran, but unfortunately on this occasion just dropped his machine into the turn. Back to the nostalgia scramble once again, and number 7 there on the 490 Micro, that's Walter Bickmore. And as Walter Bickmore crests the hill, he gets collected by Bill Finlay there and gets completely taken out on his machine. And as you see Walter coming up the hill, if you look for Richard Charlton, who is just ahead of him on the CCM, he comes across and taps Bill Finlay. Bill Finlay is almost hitting the deck when he collects Walter's left leg and pulls him straight off that 490 Micro. Now this unfortunate rider has lost his chain right in the middle of a great big massive puddle at the Canada Heights racetrack a way back in 2000. Now this is ex-Scottish motocross champion Tony Craig taking a tumble at a Scottish twin shock event in Stirling. As you can see, Tony comes up and taps the back wheel of Jim Baxter's Honda and takes this massive spill, but once again Tony is now retired from racing motocross bikes. Next up, it's Paul Chiappa at a Scottish twin shock event at Gairloch Head some years ago. Now just watch Paul as he comes round to take this very small jump. Slightly misjudges it and he is off. As you can see, he just comes up to the jump, totally misjudged the size of the jump, and Paul has spat off his 490 Micro. Now Scottish twin shocks again at Pow Mill now. This is Callum Wilson getting taken out by Keith Baird. Now Keith, who is on the yellow t-shirt, is going to turn left with his bike, but the track actually turns to the right, so he cuts across Callum innocently and just takes him right out of the equation. Now this is our old friend Morton Hanna once again at Scottish twin shock event at Glenocle in Alloa. Quite a nasty looking spill this. Morton was coming around the corner and he was on the wrong side of the post, and he slammed the brakes on and then dropped his CR250 Honda. The Cumberland Grand National now at Penrith, and as the riders go into the turn, there's a couple of riders go down. Looks like David Wilson was one of the riders. David Wilson in the green shirt from Ireland. As you see, 2 or 3 riders going for the same piece of ground, and just collect each other as they make the turn. So I'm going to finish this part 3 Motocross Fallers video with a few clips from those mad mental purple helmets. If you've never seen these guys in action, these guys are absolutely crazy. Some of the stunts and things that they do on these Honda C90 Cubs. But this was at the Nostalgia Scramble a few years back, and they were very good entertainment for the crowds. Now in this particular clip, this was to see how many men you could put on a Honda C90 Cub, and it looks like 6 is the answer to that. And these guys are absolutely crazy on motorcycles, and if you've not had the chance to go and see them, then put that on your bucket list, because they're actually very, very funny. But this was their pièce de résistance on the day. This strange man, bollock naked of course, with his big organ intact, and these guys were absolutely mental. And this little Honda C90 Cub that was powering this contraption, they went to the bottom side of the racetrack, and there's a bit of a hole down the bottom there, and it's quite a steep climb to come back out. And I just knew straight away that if they went to the bottom side of the track, they were going to struggle to pull that weight back out of the hole with that little Honda C90 Cub. But as you can see, As you can see, I'm not surprised it didn't go up the hill with all that weight that was on the thing, but eventually the passenger had to get up and do his bit to get the contraption back to the paddock. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this Motocross Fallers Part 3 video, and don't forget to continue to subscribe to my channel to see more funny things like this, and of course to see more of those classic and vintage dirt bikes.